Hey there, Keller Williams. This is your broker, Howard Weinstein. I hope you're having a great day. And I put together our broker update with some information that's going to be essential for you as we carry forward. Let me start here. Um, I know we are being inundated with forms changes. In fact, Tanya Lenhart and I were just having a conversation a little while ago about the fact that, typically there will be a forms change maybe once a year, maybe once every 2 years. And it just seems like ever since the August 17th settlement, it's like every month or two, there's something coming out or changing. And so I know that can get frustrating. We're doing our best to keep you abreast as possible. I put these videos together as they happen so that it lets you know that it's happening. However, I really, really ask as a broker that you take some time, sit down, read them word for word, call it if you have myself or the broker liaisons if you have any questions. Yet I just want you to know that we understand how overwhelming it is because it's like every time you turn around, there's an email with a new form, right? So anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of go through step by step what we're aware of right now so that you're aware of it. You've been given the same information as members of FAR, but just wanted to point out a few things to you so that you're in the know. So I'm going to share my screen. Bear with me. This is not as smooth as a presentation as I normally would have, but we're just covering so many different elements here. Okay. First thing is this. As you know, actually, let me stop the share again for a second. When since the Surfside element that happened in Miami with the building coming down and horribly taking all those people's lives, we've had all kinds of different requirements regarding milestone inspections for condominium buildings. Now, these milestone inspections, if you're not aware, apply to buildings that are uh, over 25 years old and 3 stories or more. That's the ones that the state requires these milestone inspections for. Okay. And the deal is some people are doing them and some people are not. So now they're saying, or some associations are doing them and some associations are not. So now they're forcing the sellers of all of buildings that fall into this category to disclose whether they've been done or not. So it's done in a couple different ways based on the contract. So normally I'm just going over FARBAR contract addendum because that's what we use. However, since you have listings that are sold by companies that use the CRISP contract material, I want to make sure you're aware as well. So this is letter F in the CRISP addenda, which is for condo associations. And you'll see here now, and it's in red, that they've added this section on section 10B and C that talks about the fact that it's required to have the structural integrity reserve study and if it's been done or not, or I'm so sorry, if it's been done and does this condo fall under that category of the fact that it needs to have one? So read this pretty thoroughly. It's all written here, okay, as far as what has to be checked and what has to be disclosed. And then it falls into the same type of element as far as the condo docs themselves, meaning like in this section here, it's letter E, lines 127 through 156, that a, I'm sorry, number one, that the buyer hereby acknowledges that the buyer has been provided a current copy of the prepared milestone inspection report as required. If they've been, if not, you don't check that, or the person should check that. And then B, this contract is voidable by delivering notice of the buyer's intention to cancel, based on that. So they're giving them the same option as they would as if it was like they were examining covenants and restrictions. So again, read that carefully, especially if it comes in on one of your listings. Then this is the one for our contract that we use. So this is your standard condominium rider that we use, right? That we've had for ever and ever. It just gets changed over and over. But they added this section here, okay, regarding milestone inspection reports. Um, and what they did is it looks like they crossed out the governance form section here, but then added in the milestone inspection. Okay. But it still requires the governance form. And same scenario as you saw on the CRISP documents, that if it applies, they have to disclose that it applies. And then if it's been done, that they have to provide a copy of it to the buyer. So, and again, read this word for word. But what it's doing is it's putting all this on the table regarding um, And don't forget here, the governance form still does exist, right? It's just over here in this section now, buyer's request for documents, which I know you get pushback on that from other companies because a lot of companies pretend like it doesn't exist. So anyway, it's putting the whole conversation of the milestone inspection on the table and requiring the seller to disclose what they have regarding uh, in, uh, milestone inspections for the building itself. So just to recapitulate that section before I go on, if a building is 25 years or older and 3 stories or more, they would have had to have a milestone inspection done by their association. And these documents are forcing the seller to disclose if that building falls into that category and if one's been done. Okay? I know it's a mouthful. All right, next thing is in the contract itself. Let me go over here. Okay, a couple things in the contract itself that were changed. One is the fact that you see the section here? It says municipal lien search. They cross out 9C, but they add 9C. Why? I don't know. I think it's how it falls into it. Charges for FERPTA withholding and reporting. So they're clarifying that these are seller paid costs the way the contract's going to default. Now, anything's negotiable, right? But the way the contract's going to default, that these are seller closing services. Maybe there was issues with that in the past where they were trying to force buyers to pay those. So if it's FERPTA, right, the foreign seller, the person without social security number selling and they have to withhold and report, that's going to be a charge that's clarified default contract but for the seller. And municipal lien search, to me, it looks like it's the same, but anyway, I'm just pointing it out. The other thing is they are reclarifying and changed a little bit of the wording regarding title evidence and insurance, that it must be provided with a title insurance commitment, the way the contract's defaulted. Again, there's minimal wording changes, but the thing is this: the way that the sellers, I'm sorry, the way that the contract is defaulted, it calls for the seller to designate the closing agent and pick the closing agent and pay for the closing costs regarding the owner's title insurance policy. However, the buyer will pay the any kind of like simultaneous issue, lender title insurance policies and endorsements. So it clarifies that here in section 1, if you check section 1. If you check section 2, understand that the buyer can pick the title company, but at that point, they're also paying for the owner's title insurance policy. That's already been there. What they crossed out was that the owner's policy charges and buyers shall pay for premium for buyer's lender policy and charges for closing services, which amount shall be paid for buyer to closing agent. Or they crossed that out. But again, look at the top sentence here, just to clear it up. Seller shall designate closing agent for owner's policy and charges, meaning their seller charges. Buyer shall pay premiums for any lender's title policy and endorsements. That's it. They're just stopping it there to clear that up. Remember, if you have a buyer that insists on picking their title company, could you potentially have the buyer pick and the seller pay? Yes, but you would have to write that in the additional terms because neither of these fall into that if you select one of those. The other thing that I wanted to point out to you that was changed on here is this section, section 15 regarding buyer default. Before it had it so that it said if any deposit was, the portion of the deposit, if any paid to listing broker upon default by buyer shall be split equally between listing broker and cooperating broker. That's taken off the contract now, the red cross out. Now it's going to be just the same as any other default when it comes to, I'm sorry, when it comes to any kind of dispute is what I'm trying to say over a escrow. It would go through the same element. There's a release and cancellation, and it fills out on there on that section who's getting what aspects of the deposit. And then if there's an argument or a dispute, it would go into arbitration and then interpleader courts. That's what they're clarifying here. Otherwise, this was sitting in here and it was saying it was automatically going to be split. That's going to be gone now. Okay. And then it goes through the dispute resolution in section 16. So that is the main things I wanted to point out to you on the contract. Just to recapitulate, the clarification of the fact that the buyer is paying for their own costs within the closing itself. Sellers still paying for, if it's designated and negotiated that way, they're paying for their costs and their owner's title policy if they're selecting the title company, unless that's overwritten in additional terms. And then the milestone inspections being clarified in Section F of the CRISP contract and Section A of the condominium rider for the FAR bar, which is what we write on. Ooh, it's a lot. I know it's a lot. I mean, it's even jumbled the way I'm working to present it to you, but I wanted to make sure I brought it to your attention so that you are aware where that's concerned. There'll be some other things we'll be addressing because there's some things that have come up since the August 17th settlement regarding what used to be MLS fees, minuses and pluses and modification forms. But we're going to wait on that for right now. If you have any questions regarding any of the things that I just went through, please do not hesitate to call me. Reach out 727-560-3979 or speak with your broker liaisons. Have a great day.